This conference will now be recorded.
Please.
I didn't want to hear me.
Yeah.
Right, sure that one's. I chew it like a cow, so that's why I've been told.
Okay, we will officially call the meeting to order. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
There are not.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion's passed. Meeting minutes from March 19th.
I was absent from the March 19th meeting next to Brian Haugen. What's that? Appreciate it.
Are you present on all of the other ones?
Yeah.
Okay, then you
I
probably
was
should
with
be
staff.
absent. Nope.
Motion to approve the minutes as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's passed. Monthly financial report and account payable.
Yeah, so just a heads up that we approved the hotel study. So a check for $9,000 went out, and that came from 403 from the EDA budget. So that'll be in there eventually. It's not in there right now because the check was just cut this week. HVS, thank you. Global Hospitality Services.
I'll make a motion to approve the monthly financial report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's passed. No public hearings. Old business, hotel study.
Yeah, so the last meeting, we approved getting a hotel study done. The last one was done in 2017. And in doing that, I selected HVS. We had three possibilities. One of the possibilities was a company that Pine Island is using. HVS was recommended to us by Rebound, the Dan's here today. And so we officially sent that in this week to get the ball rolling with that. They'll be here in Zumbrota doing research. And what they'll do is they'll basically come to the conclusion that yes, a hotel will work in Zumbrota or no hotel won't work in Zumbrota. In 2017, the hotel study said yes, the hotel would work. One of the smaller hotels of 50 plus units, not a grand hotel. And an example of one of those hotels that I found, Cobblestone. Those of you that have been to Twigs in Rochester, that's an example of a Cobblestone company who runs hotels. That would be an example of what we're looking at, that size. So what we'll find out next month, the ball's rolling now, and hopefully at the meeting next month, we'll have updates on the hotel. We'll use that information to share with this group, which I'll speak about in a little bit. So that's the information on the hotel study. Any questions on that?
Yeah, total cost in the study, you mentioned it, but did you say 9,000?
Yeah, so right now, the base is 9,500. And then for certain reports that you can get for that, the most I believe that we would possibly spend is about 14,500. But the base is 9,500 as of now.
Okay. And you said that was coming out of which account?
403.
Thank you.
And that's all I got for that.
When did they start, or have they started, or?
No, I just got the check yesterday,
Oh, okay.
and I put it in the mail, so within the week, hopefully by this
They'll
time
get
next
back
week.
to you.
Yeah.
And they say it'll take, what, 60 to 90 days to get a full?
Actually, less than that. I think it'd be less than 60 days.
Oh, really?
And they'll be like I said, they'll be interviewing Ziva, and they'll be looking at different spots where a hotel would physically go within the city, and they'll write it up. Yeah. Should be interesting to see what they say.
Because who was the one that was in 17? Do you remember the name?
Yeah, they're out of business now. Oh, crap.
Okay, I didn't know. I mean, that's fine. I just can't
Yeah.
remember who it was.
So I called him, his number's on there, and he's retired, and he was actually taking a nap when I called. So, and he recommended a company, HBS is out of works out of Minneapolis, so it worked out pretty well.
There's no further discussion. We'll move on to old business B, billboard.
All right, so this is, I have printed off, I got a hold of Ken Quatrain last week, and he has listed, what is it, about 7 different billboards. If this is something EDA would like to do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this for us for next meeting. What I want you to do is come back at your next meeting with an idea of if we do a billboard, which one would you prefer? There's some of them here on 63, there's some on 52. The cost is on here for the 4-week rate. For an example, like see the 4-week rate for this first one I'm looking at, I wrote it there in pen, would be $500, production cost of one time of $1,152. Last time we spent roughly $3,000 for 16 weeks. And that billboard was on the south side of Cannon Falls on Highway 52. So what I'm going to do is you can see where these are at our next meeting. If you find a billboard that you think would work, if you do not want to do a billboard, we'll vote on it next week. That's fine. If we do a billboard, it will come out of our promotional expenses on account 403. And then we'll.
We know what's left in that account after our books.
Yeah, I knew you would ask that because I should have looked that up. I don't. So I may not have enough money to do this, but we'll act like we do at this point.
That number would be good.
Yeah.
Just to see what's
Actually,
left in our
I'll send
budget.
everybody an email this early next week with the promotional budget. How about that?
Okay, so we will hold table part B, new business, rebound presentation. It is not Brett Reese, though.
Yeah, it's not Reese. Dan's here to represent
That's
Rebound.
okay.
So before you get started, we had a meeting, Todd was there, Brian was at the first one, Rebound. What I want to do is I want you guys to know what Rebound does, because I'm sure that it'll leak out that we're meeting with Rebound and people, you know what they're doing. They're meeting with Rebound. Well, what is Rebound? And that's what I want Dan to kind of let you know what they do, to enhance the economic growth of the city. The 2 meetings we've had with them have been fantastic. And I would, Dan, is it safe to say that Zumbrota is on the lower end of communities you deal with as far as population?
A population.
So, but yeah, Dan, come to give us what you got.
Yeah, it's nice to meet everyone. Just a little background on myself. Before coming to Rebound, I worked at Maxfield Research Consulting. I provide housing studies and highest and best use studies all across Minnesota and the nation. Worked on the DMC project in Rochester. And it came to my attention that you guys have 2 market rate apartment developments coming up.
Yeah.
One is done.
One should this spring.
And that stuck out to me because there's so many communities in greater Minnesota that can't get one, dirt moved to build one. And that's just impressive and that's very exciting. As far as Rebound Partners, I just kind of hold the other presentation. I won't go through it all, but just showing the team. It's Brett Reese, Chris Kennelly, and Lori Bonn and Scott Kester. Hundreds of years of experience in hotel development through impact investing in greater Minnesota and Iowa. If you just turn to the community status and geography page, This is probably my favorite page. It just shows the communities that we've worked in and the communities that are in the pipeline. And I just think it's real impressive. Currently, we're working on 2 hotels in Thieford Falls and Marshall, and another one soon to come in Faribault, hopefully. So I just think Zumbrota would be a great fit for it, and excited to see the hospitality study when it's completed. The next page shows just our project experience with apartments, mixed-use developments in a number of communities, historic renovation, and we do commercial and industrial as well. The next page just shows some of the hotels, some of our hotel experience. And the next page is the really fun hotels we've worked on. Challenging, but very fun. The next page is an example of the economic benefits of a hotel. This is from Marshall. It just shows the number of jobs that are created during the development, the jobs provided by the hotel, and the economic activity supported annually from a hotel. I'm assuming the hotel in Zumbrota would be a little smaller than
Yeah, they're looking at,
84
I think it
units.
was 50 units or less.
Yeah, but it's still economic impact. And this information is provided by Ecotone. It's a company in Minneapolis. It's nationally recognized. Just showing some of the benefits of a new hotel in Zumbrota. Read through it. And you mentioned the potential downtown development, which I was very excited about. And I just threw together just some questions and some ideas you should be thinking about. Because Goodhue County is doing a housing study. Is that my understanding?
Yep.
So once we're able to see that, just really start digging in and seeing what's available.
One thing that kind of, if you kind of explain, so what Rebound does, correct me if I'm wrong, it gets groups of investors together, community members who want to invest in the community. And the goal would be to invest and get a fund going that would help bring
Exactly.
a
Local
hotel in.
impact investing.
And then you as an investor would see rates of return on your investment.
Correct. Yep. For an example, we just started a fund in New Ulm, and we're able to raise between $4 and $5 million, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
So those investors own the project then?
Yes, they're general partners of the project, so they see returns monthly.
And they're probably then required to be involved with the debt that's on that property as well then? Or is-
No, we Rebound handles the big debt. Yep.
Okay.
So do you run it like a capital campaign then, or how does that affect, how does finding those investors affect the other things that are happening within our community? It's all private money.
Yes,
Correct.
it's all private money, yes. We've had instances where the EDA has invested, but it's pretty complicated. It's easier when it's private.
But what we talked about on Tuesday a little bit is having other businesses like Comcast or
Yes,
DFA.
yes.
That can be a part of this capital improvement because they want to improve our downtown to give their workers restaurants and hotels and their people coming in.
For sure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so that's why they also do have businesses that try to do the capital campaigning of businesses because it makes a benefit if they have some skin in the game to help their business with meetings and hotels and food. So it's not just personal, individual, it can be businesses
Thank
of
you.
all different
Yep.
sizes I know we talked that some of the minimum investments, 25,000. And I think Brett had said on Tuesday, there was somebody or a business that did $1.5 million or 2 million. Part of that in the Faribault one or the Thief River Falls, I can't remember which
Yeah.
ones.
Exactly. And a lot of companies, they contribute to subordinated debt. So it's a larger dollar amount, but with a little lower interest rate. But just thinking of a hotel, just having somewhere nice for people that come into town, to be proud of. It's a big impact.
Remember that lady that sat next to Holland? I didn't know who she was. It was the first time she was there. I think she's from Redmond, I think is what, but
Mhm.
she was interested because she likes the state theater, would like to find a place that has something to eat.
Yeah.
And some of the businesses that were talked about that are improving or part of their rebound could help with the different products you have is Barsha's property with the possible restaurant down below, Airbnb, stuff like that. Coffee Mill being up for sale, which has been out there, that's up for sale. It was talked about the laundromat was out there. Matt Markham was there, possibly something with his property too. So there was some other business owners there on Tuesday to discuss some different opportunities to help that downtown, and rebound does help, like Roxanne's property, redoing that and getting restaurants open there. There was, I should have brought them papers, you don't have them, but there's
But I also think it's different, like this concept is a return on people's investment, where like previous things that we've been working on are really like, if we're funding the pool or we're funding something, it's, it's either we're donating to make something better, but there isn't necessarily a return. So I would imagine, because I know that, people give to the Zimbrota Trust and the community band, all things, but like to give to something that's going to improve their town, that they will also, possibly reap benefits from. I think that's, definitely a better model, easier to sell, to get definitely, new and better, different things into town versus maybe just the way we've approached it in the past.
Right, and that's where I think you kind of cleaned up my language a little bit. Do a project like this, does it hinder our donations to our trust? Does it hinder the donations to the other organizations in town?
I don't think so, because I think it's a kind of a different way to give. So like people who are already donating to the trust, this is an opportunity for them to donate into a project into Zimbrota, but then also investing,
Versus just donating.
get some return
Yeah.
instead of like a write-off.
And one of the questions from one of the groups is obviously, what was the cap rate? In a smaller town, the cap rate's not going to be as high. I think Brett had said in the cities or a bigger town, it's 15, 20%. Here in Zimbrota, you're probably at that 8 to 12. And I think they even talked about that at the first meeting, that Brian, but it was also talked about, that was one of, what's the cap rate? What am I going to get back? And obviously you can't read the future, but that's kind of what they shoot for, is 8 to 12%.
Today, you can't read it, but maybe.
Well, yeah.
years.
If I was doing, on the projections right now, I would say 8.5. That's what I would start with.
So, and I mean, and I know Roxanne, and what's her husband's name? Steve? Dave are going to work with Rebound. I think they're working on doing a appraisal to work on that stuff, to see what the market rate is on stuff like that. And I think Rebound's possibly going to help with some investors on that. We also talked on Tuesday, there's 4 or 5 different restaurant groups that maybe try to get in the, I don't want to call it a supper club, but Blue Duck or the Loop Group, if you know, and all the people that own the Loop restaurants.
In Minneapolis?
No, well, there's a Loop 508 and there's Loop in Rochester. They own 4 or 5 restaurants. Is the Purple Goat part of that group too? I don't know. There was a couple of groups. What?
That's a new.
That's new ones, but yeah, so there was some, Blue Duck has been real active. What's their name? They even said their names.
It's Jenny
Parker?
and Jack.
Yeah.
Lester?
Lester, yeah. So I know they're interested in trying to get in here too. So,
I remember on Tuesday, someone mentioned that there's not a restaurant open after football games or sporting events for people to come.
Restaurant open after 3. Oh, yeah, are they? Well, certain
they're
days.
closed Monday, Tuesdays. But I
They kick
mean,
you out by 9 on Friday.
right now there's.
So really, they weren't open after
there's
the
one
football game.
restaurant
I mean,
to eat at right
we
now,
came back
other
from
than
something
that.
and they're like, no.
We talked about on Tuesday, the right operator,
Yeah.
definitely crucial.
So like this discussion is primarily downtown. So what if our hotel study comes back that there's not room for a hotel downtown?
I don't
Does
think
the
there is a,
hotel-
Hotel
there is
won't be
no,
downtown. It'll
there's
be
no-
probably 52 corridor.
Okay, well, that's like everything right now that you've talked about is improving downtown. Like, are we looking to improve anything else or bring business anywhere else in Zumbrota, or are we only focusing downtown?
I don't think we're focusing downtown.
I think the
Downtown has been a different avenue that Rebound has worked with Roxanne being
I
there.
think it's
and,
two town,
um,
general.
Well, Paul was down there and Matt Markham was down there.
Yep.
That was down a different avenue that Rebound started our very first meeting. But this hotel study, which we talked about first, we kind of went off path, is going to be a corridor. And in a perfect world, it's going to be better if we had a hotel attached to a restaurant because it's better and cheaper and more economic to have a restaurant attached to a hotel on the 52 corridor, because they're not going to come out here to like the skate park or something like, it's going to have to be here. So Miles had brought up a couple of different locations that possibly could be thing, but yeah, so the hotel is definitely going to be a 52 corridor.
Without seeing the HES study, I'm assuming that they'll provide at least 3 sites, and I'm assuming all 3 will be on the corridor, just based on signage opportunities. All
But
that.
is it not limited though, like, so like we could do the hotel study and that would be on the 52 corridor, but then is there still, like, you would work
Yes.
with the downtown as well? So it would not just be limited to the hotel?
It would be up to, there's a lot of our investment groups in different communities where one major project and then, sprinkled in smaller projects within
Oh,
the
okay.
fund.
So
you know.
it isn't limited to just the
It's
hotel
not
or
limited.
hotel/restaurant?
No, it's preferably 3 or 4 projects.
Yeah, and that's kind of where.
Sweet.
Rebound came in and talked what they did to business owners and EDA. And then they found out, so Roxanne went down to that avenue and we, as a city, went down to the hotel study in the corridor. And then they started talking about a couple other businesses, laundromat, the coffee mill up for sale,
You gotta
Berg's Towing, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
we need one, but not that. We don't need the drug laundromat. The laundering,
So,
Yeah.
right, so I think I'm just curious too, as a business owner, but like when you are approaching people to be investors, do you approach them with a specific project in mind? Or do you approach them with a project as a whole?
We've done both. It's nice to have something to put in front of
Yep.
people, but funds have been started where there hasn't been a project in mind.
Mhm.
And to have these brainstorming sessions, come up with it. Wasika comes to mind. And the big project there is, I think it's 70 unit market rate apartment. It's the first one there in 30 years. So
Like Brett used an example, he drove up on 694, there was 4 big apartment complexes, 200 units, all boom, 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 and Wasika hasn't had new apartments in 35 years.
Yeah. It's
And they're what, 10,000 people? And he's like, Zambrota's got 2? Wow, I mean, you should take that town and just go from them apartment complexes, so.
It's amazing. Just to develop, because construction costs are the same everywhere, but rents are not the same everywhere. That's why where Brett was headed up, that's why there's so many apartments. You can get those rents, $2,000 to $3,000 a month. It's a lot of money to pay for an apartment each month.
Yeah, so if anybody asks what Rebound is, hopefully have a little idea of what Rebound does. No negative thought of Rebound at all. I don't believe it's a negative thing for us at this point.
And they have a great website too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so if you want information, I mean, Their website is great too. I found out about it a month and a half ago because I was approached. What do you think? And I'm like, I can see the interest the city may have in certain parts because there was a lot of private investors. So that's how this whole initial meeting happened. Was it March 4th, I think was our first one? So, I mean,
Yeah,
Thanks for coming down, Dan.
thank you.
How does somebody invest? Like, is that something that is it go out to our community? Oh, well, the church is after me right now, so I'm. But,
no.
it's like,
So basically, in a nutshell, they'll have a
Yeah.
capital campaign they do, where they have a project or they're trying to work money. They will figure out who they want to go to and find out what they want to do with an actual idea. Or present something,
Okay.
something that, here's what we want to do. And there's a lot of, because don't they really resolve after 5-10 years? Once this campaign does, you'll get your paid out and stuff like that. So, I mean,
Yep.
there's a lot of different things, because I talked about that on Tuesday too, is that, how do you start that? How do you know what to invest? They'll have a campaign, or if we get this hotel study and they find out a property and we need to raise $3 million to get it going, they'll have a campaign saying, this is what we have, here's some drawings, here's this. And they'll do it.
So that
Yeah.
community members know?
Definitely.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's nice to have spokesmen for it, like people you might know that we
Here's what
reach
we
out
want to do,
to.
here's what's going to help
Yeah.
the city.
Who decides priority?
What?
Who decides priority?
Of what?
Like if we have a list of 6 things that we want, how do you decide, well, we're gonna get a hotel before we get a restaurant, or we want this restaurant in this location before we get this other?
Probably part of the investors part.
Yeah.
I mean,
Investor
but,
meetings.
yeah, it has to be an investor meeting, but everything that we're hearing and seeing, it's a hotel, restaurant combo is what, I mean, it's kind of, I would say, is kind of what these meetings been made.
Have focused?
And then Rebound got pushed with this downtown stuff this last meeting a little bit more, because that's
You know how
what they do
are.
too.
And I appreciate these questions because it jogs things in my brain, but the investor meetings are fun. People throwing out ideas, we'll take those ideas, run formas, do the research, next investor meeting, present it back. And it's fun brainstorming and
And I
It's
can't
fun to
remember
think.
what Brett said. He just had 2 investor meetings, one at 4 and one at 5. I can't remember where they're at, one here and one there. That's what they do, is they have meetings where they want to go and how they want to push it. So it's, who knows? I mean, if something works in a certain part, or, I mean, people talk about covered bridge. If the money was right, I think it's Tom and Sherry sell. And do something there with the hotel restaurant. I mean, who knows? I mean, that was talked about too.
It's a hotel that sits next to a motel? Is it a hotel?
Well, it's been discussed, I've never been in there, that's not, I mean, not a hotel. I mean, concept wise it is, but,
So anywho,
so. I mean, it could help the city as a whole, and it can also help other business owners as a whole, depending on which way they want to go. I think the Barshes are using Rebound for one of their avenues to do their thing.
yeah, even your other housing needs, I'm sure there's more housing needs than I'm sure the market rate apartments doesn't solve everything, right?
And I think Brent even, maybe we need to talk to Keller Barton, maybe they need some financial investment part of this too.
Yes.
So maybe that's the first thing too, is we have enough investors, we can raise $2 million to help the department. And I don't know what that looks like, but Brett brought that up. We talked to Keller Barton. Do they need financial advice or investors?
That's a good first investment. Yeah.
And then, I mean, as an investor, you can say, hey, I own part of that hotel.
So as an EDA, we've had a list of strategic things that we've been trying to focus on. And daycare is
Yes.
a large part of that. How would you potentially help us with that?
That daycare is the challenge of greater Minnesota. What a challenge. I know Faribault is opening a new daycare. It's pod style. Have you heard of that? Where they have the building and then there's multiple daycares.
Oh, yeah, kind of a co-op, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, where they use the licenses of a number of individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Daycare's a challenge, but we can definitely work with you on that.
You know, because there are some buildings, Christ Lutheran, for instance, is a school that is available now, is vacant, that was set up really for daycare purposes. And it has a fenced-in area and everything, so it's just a matter of getting somebody excited about opening a
Definitely.
daycare in that building.
Yeah, what a challenge though daycare is.
Yep, absolutely.
The more employees you have, the higher the rates.
Mhm.
Becomes unaffordable for people to have daycare. So, if you answer that question, that's $1 million question.
Thank you for.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
appreciate-
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, I wish Brett was here. I'm the market research, performa, financial analysis guy, and I wish I was more exciting.
Brett's very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
I met him and you didn't really speak on Tuesday, it was Brett.
Okay, yeah,
So I've heard Brett speak twice and he
Yeah.
did very good.
Oh,
But
thank
Brett is very knowledgeable and has been doing it, has done different avenues
yes.
of so many different projects. And that was the first meeting that we had. And he talked about Rebound, and what they did and have done in different communities and what they've done to grow. I mean, Faribault and Northfield are the two big ones that have done a lot of projects at. So it was neat to see.
Yeah. And Kenyon just took the Sunset Homes,
Mhm.
They closed, they redid all that and opened that into apartments.
market rate apartments,
Oh,
and they're selling out.
that's a great idea.
We just signed a lease on my kiddo's apartment next fall in Pine City because their long-term facility closed and they turned it all into student housing
Oh, really?
with a lakeside view. I'm not sure he's ever gonna make it.
He's never gonna study.
Housing in Mankato.
I bet.
Oh my gosh.
In Lesueur, the old elementary school, which my wife went to, we're converting into market rate apartments. They're beautiful.
Nice.
And I have to listen to my wife say, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I do what I told.
My best.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right, if there's nothing else, we'll move on to reports. Update on the Keller Bartman Apartments.
Here's the update we got from Brian. Andy Bartman is reviewing the TIF developments agreement. City engineer and attorney to develop a local developers agreements. Basically, he's got the TIF, Mr. Bartman's got the TIF, he's reviewing it, and that's what we've heard. Nothing from him since then. And Miles and I are working on the development agreement with Keller Bartman. Once, we're not going ahead of what he's doing. So once he looks at the TIF and agrees with what's going on, then we continue on. Yeah, it's a slow process.
Is there like a deadline for reviewing the TIF? Like you got 30 days and the agreement expires or?
So that's it, yeah. I couldn't tell you when they'll break ground on it or,
I think they're still doing final
stuff.
adjustments to the, but yeah, it's close.
Yeah, it's good.
Nothing else, we'll adjourn.
Thanks for coming down, Dan.